Oh my gosh, All Stars is over. It's Hotline League episode 102. We're continuing to survive. You know, this show is still on, even though others potentially have not stood the test of time. It's because Mark and I, even though we hate each other, we know that's our relationship. And I'm so glad to be here with all of you. Mark, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Got this really way too sweet wine and you, so it's a perfect Monday night.
Nice. Well, I'm feeling pretty good because Mac to Ace just gifted 5 subs in the chat. So shout out to everyone gifting in the chat. The holiday season.
That's very shallow of you. You feel good when people give you money.
Yeah.
That's what makes you feel good.
Do you not feel good when people give you money?
No, I hate it.
This is great news for me.
I went up $150 in Vegas and I feel miserable.
This is great news for me because I owe you money and I would hate to make you feel miserable. So maybe I should just not give you that money.
No, I don't like people giving me money. I like taking money from you. It's a very different experience.
All right. Well, so tell me about your, before we get into everything, first off, shout out to Alienware. Thank you for sponsoring the show. We'll talk more about them later, but tell me about your Vegas trip because I didn't see you much except for on the sort of towards the beginning of the trip.
Yeah, so I got there pretty early on Thursday, or most people did. So I just kind of sat around and read, and then I think you showed up Thursday, or did you show up? Or wait, what am I saying? Thursday, Tuesday? You showed up Wednesday.
I showed up Wednesday. Yeah, I know it was a weird event because it ran Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Like actually, yeah. I'm sure we're going to talk about it later, but that Reddit thread was talking about how this All Stars was the worst viewership. I assume part of that is because one of the days was literally a Thursday instead of a Sunday.
Well, and the time is just not good for Europe. So like that's half your viewer base, roughly half your viewer base for a Western stream not being able to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got there Tuesday. No one was in yet, so I just laid around and like read. And then you showed up Wednesday. I had rehearsal Wednesday, and then Wednesday night we hit the tables pretty hard and did very well for ourselves. Craps was great. It was an incredible time.
Yeah, so Broden and Yoni went up a ton because for context for everybody, we were playing blackjack. Then Yoni, who works with me on the sponsorship and partnership side, he went over he wanted to play craps, so he took Broden and Mark to play craps. And
Travis doesn't like craps.
I don't like craps because every time I go to craps, I just lose so much money so quickly. It's just a funnel. Because like I think craps is like high highs, low lows, and things don't go well for me. So I bowed out on the craps. But you and Yoni and Broden, I heard, did really well. And I heard you didn't bet enough to do as well as they were doing.
No, I play like there's a couple okay bet. Like craps is a stupid game for sure. The 6-8, the come and the don't come bets are like the only ones that are like okay. But if someone gets hot, you make a shitload of money if you're betting on more than that. I never put myself out there. Whereas like Broden and Yoni had like money down on every number, and a couple people, myself included, probably threw for at least 15 minutes straight. Shot for 15 minutes straight. And one guy shot for like what felt like 45 minutes. So like over the course of that like 2 hours, hour and a half, everyone at the table made a shitload of money, and the people who bet more aggressively obviously made a lot more. So I did all right. I went into that down about 100 from blackjack and ended up 150. So I made around $250. And at some points I had almost no money. I think I was like all in on that table. But it was really crazy. I got the nickname Tassels because I had a hoodie with white straps on it, and someone pointed them out, so I spun them around like tassels, like right here, and then that was my nickname for the whole night.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you did well. I went up. I know that this is what people want to hear at the beginning, but we always like to shoot the shit. I went up a ton. I was up maybe 100 or so from our blackjack, and then what was really funny was I think before the second day, I want to say, myself and Broden went and sat down at a blackjack table to kill 25 minutes before the start of All Stars, and I went up several hundred more. So it was just super lucky spree. So that's our exciting Vegas time. And then I hung out with a bunch of people yesterday as well. Hung out with Peter and Lena, and we went to that Chainsmoker show, which is pretty fun. We got super screwed. Okay, here, I'll try to tell the story really quickly because it's kind of funny. Here's what happened.
Okay.
So Do you remember I tried to get you to come to a table or to come to see Chainsmokers?
Hakkasan? Oh, yeah.
Okay. Feel free to fast forward to this part, by the way, if you guys don't, you only care about League of Legends talk. But it's a light week.
Skip another 10 minutes too, because I'll follow up with some other stuff too.
All right. So we were going to go see Chainsmokers. This is something Kelby, Peter, and Lean and I want to do for a while. And then over the course of the weekend, it was like, let's do more. And then I went to the Red Bull after party, shout out to Red Bull, and I talked to Shox, and she was like, I only want to go if there's a table. And so we pulled a bunch of money to try and get a table, and I was talking to this promoter. And then we went to the place, and this is at XS. Actually, I'm going to blast XS for this. So we go there, and they're like, we can get you this table. They bring us in, like we go get our stuff checked, we get back like security thing, all this stuff. We spend like 15 minutes going through all this stuff, and then right before we go into the club, they're like, by the way, the table's outside. And Vegas is super cold in the winter, so it really sucks. So they're like, you know what? If you don't want the table, you can. It's fine. So we go out there, and the table's outside by the pool, outside the club, and it's like sort of where they do like the beach or the day club stuff. So we're like, all right, well, maybe this isn't that bad. We can at least be outside. We can grab drinks, and then we can go inside where it's warm and watch the show, and then just come out whenever. And then Lena was like, wait, I think they don't let you in if you're outside. Like, you can't go into the club. You're just stuck outside.
What?
And so we asked the guy, and the guy's like, yeah, you can't go in. And we're like, what? We're going to drop all this money on a table? We can't go in and watch the show? We can only listen from outside? Because the front, or sorry, the stage is kind of open in the back. So, like, the music comes out the back. Like, it's not like you're literally outside of a building, you can't see anything, but it's like you can't go to the stage and be in front of the stage. You're just kind of like in this weird back area. And they're like, yeah. So we're like, all right, we will go back in and we'll just go through the regular thing. But I had us on a guest list, but the guest list ended at 1, and we spent all this time doing the table stuff. So then they wanted us to pay a bunch of money to get through because we could no longer use the guest list. I'm like, well, you screwed us over because you brought us to this outdoor table. Now it's too late. Blah. So then they bring us inside, and they're going to escort us back through the club to go back out so that we can re-enter the line. And then Kelby, so they're escorting us. And as you know, like in a club, you're crowded by all these people. And Kelby goes, what's to stop us from just leaving this like caravan that he's leading us through the club? And the guy goes, I don't know, dude, whatever. You can do whatever you want. He just leaves. So now we're just all in the club, and then Shox has to go to the bathroom. She somehow gets turned around and ends up outside. And then she's stuck outside of the club. Kobe's out there. Mateus from Cloud9 is out there. And so then we're trying to figure out how to get these in. And also it just kind of sucks because the whole place is crowded. Then a guy named, I'm going to shout him out, Tony, who has this big table, recognizes Peter, and it's like, all you guys come to our table. Come to our table. And so then suddenly we're hanging out, and all these guys are coming up to us, and everyone's angry about me telling a story. All these people are coming up to us and from the table and are like, oh, we love all your work, blah, blah. So then we're at this table. Then Tony gets the people to come outside and help Shox and Kobe and Mateus, and so the whole thing was saved. And that's the story.
Then everyone stood up and clapped, right?
Yes.
So the reason I wasn't there was because I felt like I got stabbed. The night after we went pretty hard at the tables, I was like mildly hungover, just a little bit, like a little queasy, little headache, but I was fine by the time, way before show started. But then for some reason, my stomach started hurting a lot. Not like queasy, not like upset I gotta shit myself, but like I feel like I've been stabbed. And I felt that way for the rest of the Vegas trip, so I didn't really do that much else. I actually never went gambling again. I didn't bet anything else the rest of the trip.
So you didn't have a good time?
No, it was pretty miserable. The days were really long. I was really tired by the time I was done. There was some dude in the room next to mine, and the Luxor's a piece of shit. And so I could hear like them talking, and they would get up at like 10 o'clock, and there's this one guy who would go woo wee every 5 minutes, starting at 10 o'clock. So I wanted to kill him, and I didn't feel good enough to because I was, like I said, I was feeling a little down, and then I was just generally tired. So
Well, that was our
it was not as cool as our trip last year, where you got me a penthouse suite in the Mandalay.
Yeah, well, everything doesn't always go that way. Let's go ahead and start taking calls.
Really, because I'm enjoying this. The more Twitch, like, the more people tell me not to do something, it just pulls me into it.
Yeah.
Apparently, a bunch of the producers were making fun of my shoes for being dirty and gross, which they are.
You've had those shoes for 5 years, I think, because I had that same pair.
I totally need new ones. Right? It's been like 3 or 4 years, and I'm coming around to it on my own. But then one of my producers was like, "Good, because we're not going to hire you back if you don't change your shoes." And then I was like, "Well, fuck it. Now I can't change my shoes. So stop telling me to do things, and I will do the opposite."
Fuck XS for trying to spam us. Anyway, let's start taking calls. Explain how this show works.
All right. So if you've never been to this show before, you made a good decision, and tonight's the wrong night. But if you are here, go ahead and join the Discord. Link I'm spamming in chat. When you get there, you're going to join one of the Pleb Calls or Pleb Call 2's voice channels. You'll need to be in there so we can pull you if we like your topic. Then go ahead and post your topic in the text channel above called Pleb Topics. If we like your take, we'll go ahead and pull you from that Pleb Calls voice channel into the waiting room where you'll hang out until we get to do a quick mic check with you and make sure everything sounds good. And then we'll pull you into the on-air.
And if you are a sub, first off, thank you for being a sub. I'm seeing a ton of subs go into the chat right now, and we had a bunch of people give some subs earlier, so that's very nice of you. Thank you. But be sure to put your topic in the subtopics chat, because it moves a little slower there. And this might be a bit of a shorter show this week just because, I mean, there's not too much to talk about with All-Stars. I'm sure some people will call in and say All-Stars sucks. Some other people might say some fun things that they saw at the show. And, of course, we can talk about any of the most recent news from the past 2 weeks, actually, because we haven't done the show in 2 weeks. So maybe that'll help us pad our show a bit. But
wow, no one's talking about All-Stars.
I mean, there's, like, that's the problem. What is there to talk about with All-Stars? People, like, there's no...
I didn't like it. I did like it. They should do this. Suggestions.
There's no... Yeah, I guess you can... The only thing to talk about is complaining or saying you liked it for certain reasons. But the weird thing about that event... I think it's fine. But the weird thing about that event is there's no common storyline. You know, like, you're kind of switching between tandems, and it's not like you're going to call in and be like, I feel like Nikki Taylor and Sneaky should have been dramatically different at All-Stars. I will say one thing. Sneaky declined all interviews at All-Stars, to my knowledge. And that I'm not calling Sneaky out at all. It's just like an unfortunate situation. And by the way, I got tons and tons of interviews. This is not a complaint or anything like that, but I wonder if that came from the Cloud9 side or the Sneaky side or what happened. But he did not do...
I can also just understand if someone's like, well, I guess maybe not, because he was doing a lot of stuff. I can understand if someone was just there trying to chill.
Yeah.
He had like a day where he did like 3 or 4 things. I don't know.
I'm just saying. I wonder what caused that. Because some people turned down interviews, but they didn't do it like every single day. So again, I'm curious about that. And also, interestingly enough, if you look at... I wonder if he got traded or something. Because the other thing that I noticed during the trip is that if you look at the Cloud9 Twitter account, they pretty much only tweeted about Jay Street. There was one... Okay, here's one tweet about Sneaky and Nikki Taylor going to tandem. But I think that's it. Like, especially compared to how many tweets they made about Jay Street and TFT. There was like a ton. So yeah. I wonder if he got traded or what the deal is there. But like, he didn't do any interviews and they tweeted about him once. So... Oh, Jack is in the chat. He says blackballed. I don't know what that means. I think he means blacklisted.
It's a combination of blue-balled and blacklisted. So they held Sneaky out in front of you, but you were banned from ever getting him.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we figured it out. Is there... Should we start pulling callers, or do you need a little
I'm trying, dude. These take, like, fucking look at the subtopics. Look at this like fucking wall. Like people are writing like 6 takes as one thing. I'm like, I'm not gonna read fucking dissertation on all the things you can talk about. Pick one. I have to read like a million things. When I see that, my eyes glaze over. Writing 101. Brevity is the soul of wit.
Nice. It's gonna sit here quietly while we figure this out.
I'm just waiting for topic. Okay, there's some people in the waiting. Let me go pull one of them.
Thank God. Oh, having to fill. Anyway, let's talk about. This is a funny week to do this show because there's just All Stars doesn't give you much to talk about. A couple quick shout outs. Thank you to Mac to Ace for the 10 gifted subs. Nemsick, I Hate Snarf, Dan the Esports Man, Trusty Panda 23 Ender, Will D1 Thrill, Whoopley, Wafflefoot, A Bag of Ducks, Sazball, Pixtart, and The Valid, Smillsap, a couple other people. The Schmaltz is here. The Schmaltz, where are you calling from?
Hello. I'm calling from Miami, Florida.
Miami, Florida. I really want to go back.
Yeah. That was a good time. It's like 70. It's perfect for you guys.
Yeah, it was super good.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about on the show?
So, first of all, I want to label myself as the prophet of this show. I come on like once every 4 months, but everything I've said has been correct. I predicted IG to win 2018 Worlds before Worlds even started. I predicted that Bjergsen would get equity in TSM a year before it happened.
A year?
So a year before it happened, yeah.
Do you have a third one? Because
like
if you get a third one, right?
I'm getting the third one here.
All right.
Yeah, I want like a Discord. Whatchamacallit, like the.
The funny thing is, no one's gonna go back and check these things.
No, but
I did. I mean, no one really cares, but I did find the logs on Discord of me posting on pleb topics.
Well, I would ask you if you get a third one right, do me a favor and message me and give me links to all of them, and I will literally make a YouTube video of just you getting everything correct, especially if it's an impressive one.
Be awesome. This one's not as impressive. I'm more proud of myself for the past two, but I feel like it's time for me to come out of my cave a little bit.
All right.
My topic is that this is going to be the NA's most competitive split. I think all the teams are being really overlooked, and I think that there have been a lot of really great moves, and I think it's going to be a super competitive split, and I'm really excited for it. And additionally, my take is that TSM is going to overthrow Team Liquid for the top of NA.
Whoa.
Okay, so let's break down your first one. I just want some. Can you define most competitive? Because that's like, do you mean whenever we go to international events we're going to be sick, or do you mean like all the teams are going to be neck and neck?
International, I don't know yet. I'm talking more so regionally. A lot of the teams are going to be neck and neck. The games are going to be, closer, cleaner. Teams are going to have their own style, stuff like that, because last year, especially during like summer, teams like FlyQuest and Golden Guardians kind of got together, just started to lack that like identity factor. But I think even if the teams didn't pick up like stellar names, I think that they've picked up players that are capable of like creating an identity for their team,
So it sounds like you think that it's going to be neck and neck.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams, like the middle of the pack is going to be like fucking fierce. I think 100 Thieves, Evil Geniuses, Cloud9 even I think is going to probably start to drift towards the middle of the pack, and Golden Guardians even I think could be in the middle. Like I just think the middle of the pack is going to be like more tight than it's ever been.
So what do you have? You have like TSM, TL at the top, and then you have what, 2 teams at the bottom, and then you think we'll have 6 just duking it out in the middle?
Basically, yeah. I think TSM and TL are at the top. I think FlyQuest and one other are going to be at the bottom. FlyQuest is the only one that I'm really pessimistic about. But
okay, why are you so pessimistic about FlyQuest? I feel like most people are flaming Golden Guardians and or Dignitas.
Golden Guardians, there's something about them. When they did the whole Keith to support thing, they made oh
boy.
I know, like I'm not supporting that decision, but they made like a kind of surrounding like the inside and how they came to that conclusion that that's what they wanted to do. I just see like some type like a drive in them, you know, like every player on that team just wants to like really improve, and that's not to say that they're gonna, but I have I have pretty good faith in them. I have faith in Golden Glue as well. I think Golden Glue is a really fucking good player that people kind of overlook, and he's been good for a while, and everyone said he's been good for a little while, just like not like he hasn't hit that point where he can just become one of the best. But I think this could, if Golden Guardians ends up being like a smasher of a roster, then I think he could definitely become one of those mids. But regardless, I think he's a solid, really good player. FBI
so my problem with the whole like this will be the most competitive NA-LCS split or whatever thing is like I feel like we already had the most competitive LCS split of all time, and it won't ever be topped. Which was the 2018 spring when like literally there was a 6-way tie for second through whatever first, like whatever it was. You know, everyone was like 11-7 or something, and then like almost from a mathematical standpoint, I don't know how it can get closer than that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where my thought is like stemming from, because it kind of almost feels like a rerun of 2018 spring, where there's like Evil Geniuses, Immortals, and like there's like this brand rework, more brands are coming in, more players total. There's like complete roster shifts. Like I don't know, I'm kind of getting that same vibe as 2018 spring, which is why I'm saying just as competitive, if not more.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying about like the middle of the pack teams will be better, or like more competitive. I'm a little unsure about the top end, but I think we'll get into that with some of the other calls.
That's part of my problem too. Is like I don't feel like the league can ever feel super competitive until you have a bunch of people or teams, competing for the top. Like that. Like the problem is whenever you just have this like soup in the middle, it's not like, oh, everyone is so competitive because you just have, you know, one or two teams at the top like destroying everyone, you know, and sometimes going undefeated up until like, you know, week 6 or something. So
I also don't think they're gonna. I don't think by any means they're gonna go undefeated though.
Yeah, I think Team Liquid in a regular season setting is not that sexy, and I can see the regular season being kind of close. But I'm just concerned that like even if they go to 4 games or maybe 5 games, like it's happened in some of their runs, like TL is going to come out on top again, and it might be a bit of a fun ride getting there, and it might be a little close. But these teams haven't played it, so maybe who knows? There's a lot of things. But on paper, nothing has pushed anyone into the TL stratosphere.
So what? Yeah. Why do you think TSM is going to overtake TL? I guess this is your second part of your take.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like a perfect storm for somebody to overtake TL. I think coming off of a really devastating loss and only making one roster switch is kind of abnormal to me. Usually, the team does well domestically, but like they did and like TL did at Worlds, they usually make numerous roster swaps and a lot of stylistic changes. And the one roster swap that they made, I don't think is going to fan out very well, and especially not by spring. I think maybe by summer they'll start to build their synergies, and Brox will become more of an asset. But I think at first it's going to turn into a liability, and I think TL overall is just going to have a weak spring. While TSM, I'm actually really, for the first time in TSM history for a long time, even though I'm not too fond of the org, I'm very happy with their roster changes. I think they did a really good job with Kabe, Dardoch, and Biofrost, especially the Biofrost one. I think that was huge to get Biofrost.
I just think like TL shouldn't really be making big moves unless they're trying to do what TSM did at the end of 2017, which was like completely explode their roster, because they basically have, you know, best in slot players in a lot of their positions,
right?
And the only like upgrades they can get are more like in theory if these pieces all work correctly together. Because I don't think it's like, oh, let me go get this mid laner who's an upgrade over Jensen. Let me go get this top laner who's clearly an upgrade over Impact. And like same with, you know, Core JJ and Double Lift, and Smithy was probably the weakest individual on the roster, and that's what, you know, the one move that they made because they don't want to go complete blow up that TSM tried after. So I
But
don't
my
think
thing,
it's fair to judge them in the same category as teams who have failed at Worlds previously, because some of those teams didn't have easy ways to make moves, and that's what TSM did that one time as well.
right? And I think I do agree. I always kind of saw Smithy as the weaker link in the roster. I just don't understand why Broxa. Like it just seemed like a really left field move, which is cool for in like a publicity standpoint, and like it gets people hyped up and shit. But like,
I think we have someone else talking about Brox later, so I don't want to go. I don't
yeah,
want to.
that's fine. Yeah, I
Shoot
look
a
forward
scatter
to
shot here and hit every.
yeah, I want to hear that call then because I'm really curious to know like what people think of that. Because like, yeah, I won't get into it. But yeah, I think TSM can do it, and I think they have the best shot at doing it. I just think TL's at like a really vulnerable spot for this spring, and I think TSM is going to be able to exploit it, especially with Dardoch and Bio.
I'm just super curious how the Dardoch stuff goes. That's the biggest concern for me is what does that look like? And I don't know. I'm just like I'm super fascinated to see how it goes because it feels like this is just the story with every team that Dardoch is ever on. It's you know, if Dardoch works out and the team doesn't implode, they're going to do great. And if they don't, then it's going to be a big issue. So I don't know how that's going to go with TSM, but I do feel like there's a chance that they could be much more competitive if that does all work out. Are you okay, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking to Emily because she said she has takes on Brock.
You know, Mark, you don't prepare for the show. You make me carry the whole thing. And
you didn't say anything for like 10 seconds after
and we're done now. It's over.
You fucking brain
in the
boomed.
show. You get the reference, Mark. I was memeing.
No, I didn't get it.
Okay, because you're distracted.
Explain it to me.
It was a reference to another show. Anyway, Schmaltz. Yeah. So I don't know. I think, but the nice thing for you is I feel like both your predictions are somewhat safe. There's a really good chance that you end up with a pretty competitive split, as we've seen a lot of pretty big changes, and a couple of the teams that were perhaps lackluster in the past, like Echo Fox, are spending big to try to get great players and import talent. But I also but I think the TSM one is the thing where it's kind of more of a coin flip, where I do really feel like they could be competitive, but it's going to depend on how the Dardoch stuff goes. So I think that's what's interesting, and I'm excited to see North America see Kabe for the first time, because I know that obviously he's been at Worlds, right? But I think he's not a player that a lot of the North American audience knows very well, and like you know the Recklesses or Perks of the world. Yeah. So I think that's going to be really exciting as well.
Definitely.
Well, hey, thank you so much for the show or for the call. Is there anything else that you'd like to?
Yeah, you're welcome for the show. Yeah,
thank you for the show. Sorry, I'm a little distracted because I'm trying to see if we can get. Mark, do we have any topics about the format changes potentially?
I thought about pulling one, but then I didn't. Do you want me to?
You should pull one, because I feel like I've got something I can talk about.
Why don't we just talk about it instead of having a caller come in and introduce a topic? Us go, okay, that's interesting, but here's what's actually
the point of the show. Because the point of the show is to take calls, Mark. That's
what if
the
we change
of the show. Schmaltz, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to say as we move on to the next caller?
Hey, shout outs to Alienware and Invictus Gaming. Let's go.
Okay, have a good one.
You too.
Alienware and Invictus Gaming. I love that those are the two shout outs. Regardless, I think we're ready for the next call.
Alrighty.
Mark is off. I don't know. Emily, if you're watching the show, stop distracting Mark, all right? I need my co-host here. The Valid, thank you for 5 months in Nuco. Black Inferno 7. Smillsap 917. Danny 0304 is here. Danny, where are you calling from?
Toronto.
Toronto. How are you doing there? I hear there's a lot of snow.
Yeah, it's pretty cold here.
I'm sorry. Well, what do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
All right. So I have a very unpopular opinion. I really like the TFT portion of the All-Star, because I feel like the All-Star is an event for people like to chill and to relax, and I feel like TFT is not like a intense competitive game. It's better to watch it like in a chill way, like in an All-Star game, because if it's like really competitive, then it's get like really boring, because everyone will just play the same style anyways. But if it's like a kind of chill way and like pro player playing it, it's actually really fun to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually felt like So I have mixed feelings on the TFT stuff. So I guess we can just open this up to talk about all the TFT stuff at All Stars. So one, I think it is like if you are going to have any TFT stuff blend in with the league stuff, All Stars is definitely the place to do it. I completely agree with that. I do feel as though they should have either put the TFT stuff in the very beginning of the day or at the very end of the day, so that the league folks who are not interested in TFT can either show up later or leave early. Because I think that was actually one of the frustrations, and I think there'd be a lot less annoyance at the TFT stuff if that had been the case, if they just scheduled it in a different way. I suspect that they felt like this was a good event to try to market TFT to the league audience. But I don't know. I feel like at that point in time, you're starting to prioritize the TFT marketing over the event, and that's only going to hurt your situation whenever people are already skeptical about this event in the first place. I did like the fact that you got to see LCS pros like goofing around in TFT. I felt like that's actually, sorry, I shouldn't say LCS. I mean like traditional League of Legends pros goofing around in TFT.
So I think I like the idea of having TFT included, and like you said, putting it more at the beginning or the end of the day, so you're not breaking up people who don't care about it. But I think 2 out of most days having 6 or 7 events is a little extreme, because then you're making a third of All Stars kind of about TFT, which is a little high. And then it's interesting that you like the littles portion, because they called it like the Legends and the Littles, because casting it is really hard and not very fun, because it's just people making wrong. Well, not all the time. The second group of littles wasn't that bad, like with Saros and the Shy and stuff. But a lot of the other ones, like Whippo, was pretty good. So like the second lobby was good, but the first lobby, the players were pretty bad, and it's kind of hard to cast when it's like, okay, he's going for a donkey roll strat, but he leveled early, and now he's doing it on Krugs instead of the next one. It just doesn't make sense why you're doing it on Krugs instead of waiting for Krugs' gold to come in, because you've already leveled. And
Did you guys talk about the tone that you were going to use for casting that? Because I assume if you had been able to pivot more towards a like just goofing around stuff, and maybe if you'd been able to bring in more influencers to just talk about it, I feel like that could have been kind of cool.
Hey, we tried that, but influencers are pretty unreliable, and they don't always show up. And on top of the fact, like I said, this is the second one of the day a lot of the time. So I personally don't really enjoy watching people who are bad at something do it. Unless it's like hilariously comedic, but I'd rather see like the idea of pairing them up, like put them on the same keyboard, or like put the like do something more interesting than just putting them out there and just watching them kind of fuck it up.
Because Hearthstone had a pretty fun tournament, or maybe has had multiple fun tournaments, where you had like teams of players picking the Hearthstone cards and playing against each other. And then you would do a bunch of mic listen-ins to hear the conversation between the different people, and it was quite fun to hear like the discussion. And I actually kind of feel like that would have been fun. Maybe there's a world where like almost like it's not so much of a cast as so much as a situation where you guys are just actively helping to switch between the different conversations.
Yeah, because I don't mind, taking different tones, and we talked about it, but it's hard to find one when it's like, okay, well, we could be educational, but then like it's hard to be educational with everyone kind of doing the wrong stuff.
Yeah, because then you're just trash talking. Oh, he definitely should have done this. Yeah. This guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, so like when I saw, I think it was Sneaky who did that random thing. Then some guy just like sold off his volley bears in a weird spot, I think it was, but then like still kept another thing in that didn't make any sense. I forget exactly what it was, or maybe he sold Skarners, but you're just watching people do things that are like kind of like just outright wrong, not like, ooh, maybe he's going for this line kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think
but also the game is pretty new, so
it's been out for what, 5 months?
To Danny's, I will say one thing about Danny's point though is that the spectator stuff in it is not great yet, and so that's also kind of hard. It's like,
go
ahead.
Oh yeah, one thing I really don't like is when they switch to one player, then they switch next player right away. Like Mark was talking about some comp, then they just switch right away. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, the spectators were a little, or whoever was spectating was a little switch happy, but then the players are also, because you're getting their POVs, they're very scout heavy, So like people are like it was kind of hard to cast as well for that reason, where like people were just hopping around like fucking crazy over the course of the games, and it was really hard to like track anyone because there's no spectator tool. So you take their POV and then they're skipping around, then you swap to another POV and they're skipping around.
So that might, to Danny's point, that might be a reason not to have. Well, it's funny. Danny originally was suggesting you have TFT in the event, but one reason to be skeptical about it is what Danny said, which is that the game is pretty new, so the spectator experience is not that great. So you're kind of shoving, and I love TFT. I'm a huge proponent of it. I play it a ton.
Me too.
You're kind of shoving this. You're layering on. All right, we're now putting TFT into a league event that people might not be super excited to see. You now have an event where like the play is kind of lower. The tools for spectating it are not that great yet. It's just it might have been a little bit too early, and maybe they could have done. And on top of that, I think just scheduling it differently would have been a pretty good thing. I don't think this was a great place to market the game if that was the intent, and I don't know if it was, but if it was, I feel like this was a little too much.
Yeah, I think the idea of including TFT is fun. I think the idea of getting LCS pros involved is fun. I think using influencers for it as well, or like people who are high rated at the game, is fun. But having two of them, usually more in the middle of the day, and the one with the pro or like the league players not really having on stage coaching just made it like super awkward to try and cast that sometimes. So I think I like the idea, but I think, like what we already said, some of those changes would make it a lot better and less intrusive for people who are there for League of Legends, which is the main draw.
So
yeah, that's true.
This is actually.
I agree with that.
Sorry, go ahead, Danny.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think the TFT stuff it's an interesting situation where TFT's in right now, and I know actually this call is the perfect example of that. I want to talk about TFT right now from like a product standpoint, but I know that a lot of people in the chat right now don't want, right? Like Zimmy with the emote eyes or whatever in the chat says wrap it up, right? There are a lot of people that follow League or play League that just are not interested in TFT at all because it's a game that is not interesting to them. So that was, I tweeted over the weekend, should I start a dedicated TFT channel or a YouTube channel for TFT and Runeterra? And I got really mixed results on the poll because I want to cover TFT. Should I stick it on my League of Legends channel? A lot of people say like, oh, just stick it on another playlist. The problem is if, let's say, even 50% or 60 or 70% of my channel doesn't give a shit about TFT at all, and I stick the video up there and nobody watches it, and it just gets killed by the YouTube algorithm because YouTube says, well, nobody wants to watch this, or not nearly as many people want to watch it, it just kind of dies. Whereas I wonder if I should start a new YouTube channel to do it. But then, the people that do care about TFT that follow my YouTube channel are frustrated because they have to go find a new.
Yeah, they follow two things.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's kind of an awkward situation. I mean, again, I love the game and I want it to flourish, and I think it's in a great place as a game itself. But it's kind of in an awkward position whenever you place it in the ecosystem. And I think a lot of people like the League of Legends ecosystem, and I feel like a lot of people are going to have to figure out how to navigate this, including Riot, over the next year or so.
Yeah, I mean, the something like a BlizzCon makes it relatively easy to just host everything together but separate, and maybe making All Stars a Riot Con event when the shooter game comes out and all the other games all start coming out, rather than taking the clout that League has and just kind of jamming it in there with it.
See, like Meat Bun says, who here is actually frustrated that Travis isn't producing any TFT content in the chat? Meat Bun is a subscriber, and maybe he got gifted the sub, or he or she got gifted the sub. But it's this weird situation where it's just like some people are so against TFT, they just don't want it anywhere near them, and I get it. Like, people are still angry we're talking about TFT on this call, but it makes a lot of sense that we're talking about TFT on the show because it was just at an international League of Legends event that we were all at that Riot was broadcasting, and Riot is going to have to figure out where to place it in the future. So it's
rather than talk about it and give feedback on its implementation, let's just say nothing. So when it happens again and we're still not happy, we can keep not talking about it. Yeah. Great call,
Danny. So it sounds like ultimately, Danny, I think Mark and I are cool. Mark, would you say you're cool with TFT as long as it was just scheduled better?
Yeah, I mean, I cast it. I love TFT. I'm casting another tournament.
Just having it
right now.
All Stars, you're cool with.
Yeah, I think overall having fun game modes that are not just standard is fine.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Danny, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to talk about on the show?
All right. Last thing I just want to say, if Travis, you make TFT videos, I will like and subscribe.
Thank you. Appreciate
Which
it.
means he doesn't right now.
I mean, you mean to the new channel, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Because
Oh,
anybody
okay,
can
okay.
subscribe to my current channel by going to travisgafford.com/lewd. Thank you, Danny, for the call.
Thank you. Have a
Okay,
good
have a
night.
good one. All right. Mark is off to grab our next caller. Thank you to Tommy Tat for the 4 months. There are 3PO, Snoopy938, Danny Zing 0304. Oh, who just subbed or was just on the call. Daofu, Thangak, ESN Josh, Nutter, Naked 2, MTG Matthias, and Insulin Shots. Supika, I feel like I know who you are. Welcome to the show.
Well, there's
Hello.
2 people.
What do you? Oh, and the Graphic Truth is also here. This is super confusing to me. Graphic Truth, where are you calling?
I'm calling from Denver.
Emily, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Venice, California.
Fantastic. So for those that are not familiar, Emily Rand used to work with me at Yahoo. I'm sure everyone's familiar with her, but now writes and appears on camera for ESPN Esports. Graphic Truth. How did you want to do this, Mark? I assume we're going to have Graphic Truth pitch something, and then Emily's going to respond.
Graphic Truth has a take on Broxa, and I saw Emily saying in chat she has her own thoughts. So I'm sure this will just turn into a Broxa topic.
Well, welcome to the show, Emily. Graphic Truth, what do you want to talk about on the show?
I've just been seeing a lot of people talk about how the Xmithy Broxa trade is either a downgrade or at least a side grade at most. And I just don't think, I think that the jungle synergy that you're going to get from Broxa and Jensen is going to be way more valuable than maybe what Xmithy brought to TL before. And I don't think that Xmithy or that Broxa is that much worse than Xmithy in a lot of those aspects.
Why do we think that he's going to have better synergy with Jensen?
I mean, if you've been watching their streams, they already look like they are just having a blast together. They both can talk together in a different language. I mean, I don't know. It feels like when I watch them stream together, they have like really good. They just synergize really well together.
Worth noting, they won't be able to talk in that language whenever they're on a 5-man call system on stage at LCS.
No, I think everyone's actually just going to learn it.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying they could make small little calls here and there, little words. Maybe they have some things they can just say. I just think that the synergy I've been seeing from them, and Double have kind of talked about how they couldn't really do anything mid and jungle last season with Jensen and Xmithy. And I just think that this is going to kind of open it up. And as you saw last season, or at Worlds, the jungle mid synergy was a really, really big deal for all the top teams.
All right, Emily, I'll toss to you first. What do you think?
So when I said that Broxa takes, they're actually really lukewarm, but some of the things he said kind of tie into what I want to talk about. I know, like very, very lukewarm takes, and it's not anything I haven't said elsewhere. But the interesting thing about Broxa in terms of like a style perspective is that I can't tell how much of what he did on Fnatic is his style and how much of what he did on Fnatic is his own style. And it could just be that he hasn't been allowed to not play in the way that he played on Fnatic. So I'm actually really curious to see him on Team Liquid, because I want to see if some of the things that he was both praised and criticized for in LEC will continue. Broxa tends to heavily focus one side of the map over the other, be it top side or bot side. So that's actually what I'm the most curious about to see when he comes to LCS. As for synergy with Jensen, I think that's a really interesting thing to bring up, because Jensen is he's had, in my opinion, just based on like some of his laning movement, he's not had really strong synergy with a lot of his junglers. So I would love to see, like, if that is the case, if they just get along super, super well. I would actually love to see a team where he is helping facilitate his jungler and vice versa, because I don't know if Mark and I used to talk about this on like the super old Yahoo show. We would talk about Jensen all the time in MVP discussions. And one of my biggest criticisms of him back then was that he didn't seem to have a lot of really good awareness or communication with any of his junglers, just based on like his map movement, ward placement, stuff like that. I think it's something he's improved in over the years, but I've still never seen him with a jungler that's been like, it's like, wow, you guys have super strong mid jungle synergy. So if that is the case, and again, like basing it on streams is kind of a little
lukewarm. I understand that. That's all I got
early.
right now. Though.
I'll just say it's early. Yeah, it's very, very early, right? Which is kind of why I hate off season. I just want to see teams play because there's only so much you can surmise from on paper and streaming, right? But if that is the case, that would actually be awesome, and I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right that Jensen has never been like the mid jungle there invading together and messing stuff up. He's gotten a little bit better about playing around bot lane, I guess, with Doublelift, but him and Smithy were nothing like Clid Faker, Doinby, Tien, like the best from other regions in terms of mid jungle synergy. So
I mean, Doinby is basically a jungler, so
yeah.
You're right. He's like an exception in every way.
Yeah. That's true. I think in general, though, it's never been his strong suit, like you're saying. And I don't know what to make of Broxa. I hear such different things from people inside the EU scene, just in general, about like, yeah, he's pretty good mechanically and he's good at the things he does, but he's a slow learner and seems to like just do some of the same stuff. And they say he has gotten a little worse since his peak. Which makes me a little pessimistic. But then I also hear at the same time that the internal politics of Fnatic were a little fucked up and it was like kind of cliquey and not very good, which is like a nightmare situation for a jungler because they're the one who usually get the most messed up in a situation like that, like in terms of their play where no one's great friends and communicating and that kind of stuff. So part of me is like, oh, he sounds overrated in general from Europe from his performance, but also his team was kind of shaky at points. So I don't know what to make of him. I think Team Liquid is a very professional setting. It sounds like from everything we hear about internal of the team, for the most part, they still have the typical pro players and having strong opinions about each other and things, but it doesn't sound quite as cliquey, I hope. So I don't know. I'm pretty lukewarm on the Brox swap. As a whole,
I just wanted to see him on a team that's not Fnatic, because I do feel like there was that. If you're talking about internal politics of Fnatic from his jungling style, and again, this is all like me drawing conclusions just based off of jungle pathing, right? So like please take that into consideration when you're discussing this elsewhere. But it really seemed like he was definitely split between one side of the map or the other, right? Which means that either Bwipo is constantly calling him top or Reckless is constantly calling him bot. And there's that kind of push-pull between like, where is he going to be pathing and where are they going to really focus their resources in? So that's why I'm most curious to see him off of Fnatic, because I think he's, again, very mechanically skilled. I think he's a nice person. Like every time I've talked to him, he's great
so
interview.
Cool.
Absolutely like amazing to talk to. So I'm excited he's going to be in NA. Like I got to interview him more, right?
That's how I feel. I was about to say that. Like, I think that. Oh, sorry. You can finish. I don't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, that was it. I was pretty much finished.
Well, here I'll say my bit on him after Graphic Truth because I obviously I'm not going to talk too much about the analysis of it, right? But Graphic Truth, do you have any thoughts on what Mark and Emily said?
No, that was my second part that I was going to bring up was the I want to see him not on Fnatic, because if all the rumors are true with how Youngbuck was trying to duct tape that team together, then I want to see him on like a good running team like TL. He hopefully will just slot right in to this like oiled machine, and we'll see what happens.
I mean, TL also has a really whiny controlling AD, you know. So I'm
yeah, but I don't know if it's just the whiny AD on Fnatic. I think I was
joking, by the way. I just wanted to slam Peter. But I agree. I know what you're saying, right? Which is that if the rumors are true, like Fnatic was in a pretty messy place for the entire year and managed to still, by the way, be near the top. So if he can succeed in that environment, you know, what can he do in a more stable, less messy environment? But to your point, Emily, which you started to get into, for me, I'm always looking at, you know, unlike Mark, you know, I want teams to do well and be competitive, but I also look at stuff just from what does this mean from like a brand perspective and for like the storylines of the league and all that. And I think it's really exciting. I'm happy that we saw a change with TL because I feel like it would have been kind of boring if they continued to be potentially the dominant team if somebody else can't rise up against them, and also just like not really have anything to talk about at the start of the year for them. So I think that him coming in, Prox is really interesting dude. I like him a lot. I think he's like a very funny personality to add to that team. So I'm just pretty pumped to see how this goes down.
I mean, I just feel like it's such a low variance move in a sense where I don't think it'll go terrible. I think Brox is good enough that it's not gonna be like, oh my god, what happened to this guy? He shit the bed, the way it sometimes happens with reports. But I also don't think he's going to bring some insane synergy. And from what I understand, it sounds like Smithy was a more intelligent pather and things like that than Broxa is. You know, you might be trading some of the skirmishing potential for and different champ pools. I would say both sound like they're somewhat limited, but just straight, you know, different in their picks. For, you know, you're losing some of the intelligence that Smithy had about making sure he was in the right place at the right time. But who knows? Maybe that was the Fnatic atmosphere making it look.
I think actually one interesting thing that will happen from this is that I feel like people didn't really talk too much about Smithy on TL in the past, and it was kind of hard to tell, you know, what impact he had on that team and how good of a jungler he is. And I feel like more than anything, this season will be an interesting place to reveal who Smithy is as a player, because we'll be able to learn a lot about how TL can succeed without him. So like if for instance TL struggles a lot, it might be a world where like, oh wow, Smithy was a lot better than people gave him credit for, and also now he's going to be on this brand new team, so how much will he be able to help carry or make that team succeed? So I'm actually interested to see what Smithy's story looks like next year.
I feel like no matter what, it's not going to be that great of an upside for Smithy.
Yeah,
because no matter what, he's not going to be on a. I'm pretty sure no matter what, he's not
Mortals
going to be on
isn't going to be.
Team like, yeah, so like even if he plays well, I just feel like it's kind of handicapped. Plus, he hasn't been a flashy player in quite some time, aside for like Baron situations. So I just don't see how this is a good personal branding type move for Smithy.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much, Graphic Truth. Is there anything else that you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Have a good one. And Emily, thank you so much for calling in. Should we have you stick around? Do you want to talk about anything else?
Why are you booting her out, huh? She could stay.
I mean, you can. I can hang.
Okay.
I have more lukewarm opinions.
Well, I needed to a quick break, Mark, and then should we talk about the format stuff after? Because maybe what we can do is I can bring up some of the stuff I've heard about format changes, and then we can also see if anybody wants to have a take on what those format changes are and if they think that they're good or not.
Okay.
So either way, we'll take a quick break. A quick break to talk about Alienware, our sponsor. So actually, I've got two cool things for you guys to talk, or for you guys to notice or hear about when it comes to Alienware. Both of them are opportunities for you to get free stuff. So the first one is I'm actually doing a giveaway right now with Alienware and NVIDIA. You can win a Alienware monitor, a 25-inch, 240 hertz G-Sync monitor. I put a tweet up a short time ago, or a couple days ago. It's just literally the simplest thing in the world. If you have a Twitter account, retweet and follow and enter. There are some, I've tweeted below the regions that are eligible to enter. But I put that link in the Twitch chat, and I'll try to put it into the YouTube description as well. So just there's a chance to win a monitor. The other thing is Alienware is currently running through Alienware Arena a giveaway for up to 4 M15 notebooks that are All-Star branded, and I believe that is still going through for the next week. I'm going to put a link to their information. I think it's here. Let me actually hang on. No, let me just check the link really quickly. Should be this one. Either way, you can win a Alienware M15. This is the same thing that Broden and I use. It's a beautiful machine. They gave some of these away at Worlds. I put the link in the chat. It's bit.ly/Alienware All-Stars. But that'll also be in the YouTube description as well. Let me see if I can actually show this on screen, because it's pretty cool. They've done a couple of these wraps now during events, so you can get something that feels really unique to the event. There you go. You can see it on screen. It looks kind of nice, right? All-Star skinned M15 laptop. Looks fantastic. So go ahead and go check that out. It's actually really helpful for me if you go there, bit.ly/Alienware All-Stars. The link is in the Twitch chat. Go sign up. And it is eligible for some countries outside of North America as well. So I know in the past, sometimes, the giveaways we've done or that I've helped promote are North America only. This one is open to some more folks. So a huge chance, or really cool if you guys go check it out, and a pretty good chance to win one, I think, since they're giving away multiple. Either way, thank you so much to Alienware for their support of the show, and hope we get to promote them a ton next year as well. Into the next call. So, Mark, do we have a format call, or should I just start talking now?
Not really. You should just start talking.
Okay. So this is why. So I'm going to excuse Emily and Mark from having any response to this whatsoever, because both of the companies they work for, and obviously Mark is a contractor over there, but since he's on the broadcast, he might be aware of this, because the format changes I'm talking about that I've heard are happening are not like a best of 3 type of format change, but instead what I've heard is that they are going to be moving to a 3-day broadcast schedule, so that what you will have are some games that are broadcast on Saturday, some that are broadcast on Sunday, and some that are broadcast on Monday night. And that supposedly ESPN is somehow involved with the Monday night games. I don't know if they're being broadcast on ESPN or like exclusive through an ESPN website or something, or if it's just like an ESPN branding. But the terrible news about all this, and why I'm so against it, is that we will have to move Hotline League if these changes go through, because we will not be able to do it on Monday nights anymore.
We should just cancel it.
Or we could stream against them, because what I've heard is it's supposed to be like a game of the week deal. So we could just be like, no, fuck you, Riot. You don't come into our territory. We are going to stream against you, and you're going to lose viewership because you decided to take our time slot.
Or we do what we did with Primetime League or Greatest League Talk Show, is we try and catch the ass end of the broadcast, people who have nowhere to go when it's
that might be a good idea. Actually, that could be. Well, the only problem is I wonder when they're going to be brought. Like when they're what? I don't know the timing. So,
and if I'm on AD, because that was a pretty brutal turnaround that didn't really do the point of it taking me like 30 minutes to get home, and then we're not exactly catching the live stuff right away.
I should have talked to you before we did this show and asked you if you had heard about this, because then now you're speculating as to whether or not you're going to be able to do it or whatever. I'm kind of curious, but
yeah. You should have brought it up before. Either way.
Well, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if we were going to talk about this on the show, but then I saw a bunch of people in the chat asking about the format changes and if I'd heard anything. So anyway, I think, look, all this is theoretical. This is the rumor that is going around right now, we should say. And Emily, feel free to take off if this call is and the show is going in a direction you did not anticipate before you ended up on it. But
it is. I honestly had not heard this whatsoever.
Okay, great.
So which is kind of funny because you think I would have, but apparently.
But now you're free to speculate.
I live in a cave.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well.
And I just pay attention to LPL roster rumors on Weibo.
So prior to this weekend or the Vegas trip, I could have engaged in uninformed speculation.
Okay.
But now I can no longer do that.
So you've heard some stuff. Okay. Well, regardless, how do you want to do this, Mark? Because we can take calls, and then I guess you can just be quiet during all of it, or you could just talk theoretically on if these changes went through or something. Or we could just not take any calls if this is too awkward for you.
Yeah. I mean, I want to be able to talk about it, but I probably shouldn't, because there's a pretty big part of the 3-day schedule that you didn't really hit on when you were
a theoretical 3-day schedule, we should say.
Wow, I'm learning so much about
the theoretical 3 days. I'm saying what you said, Travis, was missing a pretty big thing that I had heard about. Yes. So that's what I was saying.
Well, I guess I should also say I've heard that Academy is going to be kind of mixed into this, but that the Academy games will be on a different channel. So, I mean, I don't have all the info.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either, because this is just I don't really get briefed on a lot of this stuff. It's more like people around me are talking and I just kind of listen.
Sure. Me too. That's actually what I do. People are just talking around me and I just listen. So, well,
but yeah, I don't have anything to add.
Should we take any calls?
Anything,
and I can just talk about it.
If you take calls,
yeah,
you can. I can leave. Call it off.
Don't leave. Just bring the cat and just pet the cat while I talk about it. It'll be great. And then Emily and I can speculate as to.
I probably shouldn't.
What do you mean?
Because I don't know if my.
I will single-handedly talk to the guests.
You got this.
I got this. This is my moment to shine.
I am totally blindsided by this. I had no idea.
I am so used to. Now we're just mostly zooming in on your girlfriend. There we go. I am mostly.
Cat.
There we go.
There you go. I got most for
mostly your girlfriend's feet, which is actually turning this stream into a different situation. Good distraction, Mark. You're saving yourself. You're not on the show anymore. Let's just grab 1 or 2 calls about it in the chat. If somebody wants to put something in the subtopics or the pleb topics chat, I will talk to you if anybody has a strong opinion on whether or not they should move to a 3-day broadcast or not. But that's how we'll handle it. Emily, you didn't go to?
Why don't you pull someone for one time if you think it's so interesting?
Fine, but you have to go do the. You have to go do the chat with them, or like the mic check.
Yeah. I'll also mic check them, but you pull the one that you think is the most interesting one because I don't know what you're gonna find.
I'll move one person into the waiting room.
Bow tie. Last time you guys saw him, did he always have this bow tie?
He's very cute bow tie.
I've never seen the bow tie before. Okay, I've pulled 2 people into. One of them is anti and one of them is for it. Jade, actually, I can't pull you because you're not in either of the call.
You didn't pull anyone into the waiting room.
I did. Stan Bright is in the waiting room.
Oh, okay.
And then and then Jade just needs to get into one of the calls or the waiting rooms or whatever, the pleb calls or the sub calls or whatever, so that I can pull.
All right, I'm gonna go pull someone else until then. How about that?
Cool, go for it. Emily, why didn't you go to All Stars?
All Stars is just Vegas is not my thing. Not just because of my personality, which is incredibly boring, as you know, but it's also because this is gonna sound really stupid, but I have a very hard time breathing when I'm there.
Oh yeah, because of all the smoke.
Because of all the so I have really bad lung issues, as you also know. Yeah. So being in Vegas is just really honestly bad for my health. I hate to sound super meh. I'm a princess. I can't handle Vegas. But yeah, I always come home with a really bad cough and feel really sick. So it's just not worth for me.
Proximate Galaxy. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
And also where you
my take
from?
Is basically that. Oh, I'm calling from Montana again.
What do you want to talk? What do you want to talk
about? So I want to talk about the fact that Team Liquid is probably going to still be the best team in North America again. I don't think they've got any significant challengers. And to me, I reluctantly make this point because I was coming into this year hoping that someone would be able to overthrow them, but none of the roster moves, to me, are enough to overtake.
Gotcha. Well, we kind of talked about this a little bit from the other side on the TSM situation, but Emily, I'll throw to you first. What do you think of the Team Liquid situation? Do you think they'll stay on top?
I mean, I think I kind of agree with what Mark said earlier, actually, where regardless of the Broxa Xmithy change, even if they're pretty rough looking in the beginning, I also think that TL is going to be the strongest team in North America, just based on their roster, which is a very, again, very boring take to have. The only exception would be that if TSM miraculously hit the synergy jackpot with Dardoch somehow, and that team just ends up being absolutely insane out of nowhere. That's the only team on paper, looking at looking at the rosters on paper, that you could see, that I can see in my mind really challenging TL for the actual split title. That's not to say that other teams won't do well during the regular season, or we might have some upsets going into playoffs, but when it comes down to it, in the finals, winning spring split, I still think it's going to be TL.
The only other team I'd throw in there potentially would be C9, just because they were pretty close before. And if Sven has a good split or year or whatever, and their top side and Blabber is actually as good as, or like close to what Sven was. Maybe they can pull it off if Broxa and TL isn't quite as hot. I'm basically looking at Summer and being like, okay, imagine that again, but TL isn't quite as good and C9 is just about as good. Maybe they can win that series. But that still feels like a long shot because C9 is actually changing out more than TL is. And I would say those changes are much more substantial in terms of like what their knock-on effects will be than I think Broxa and Smithy would be. So it does still feel like a super long shot.
It's also a pretty interesting position for Sven, right? Because this is really the first time that we've seen him in the, like, not with a more experienced support. Right. And I actually love Vulcan. I think he's incredibly talented. I like really want to see him succeed. I'm happy he got picked up for this team specifically, and I'm really curious to see how their lane goes. But one of the reasons is because I think this is Sven's chance to kind of be the veteran in the lane as opposed to someone who's either an equal or someone who's being brought up by a more experienced support like he was with Mithy when he was Niels. So
Proxima Galaxy, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say to the point on C9 maybe being able to challenge for the title. I think that kind of overlooks Evil Geniuses because their roster to me is a lot more similar, at least in the main shot calling roles, to what C9 was in 2019. Because you have Svensk Garen and Zazel, who were both huge voices for Cloud9 going into EG. So I think EG is actually going to look more like Cloud9 from 2019 than Cloud9 in 2020 is going to. And I'm actually super interested to see how they end up playing out because I think, while I did call in last week to say, like, I'm a big Sneaky stan, but I do think Bang is a better AD carry than Sneaky if given the opportunity to shine. And I think it's all going to come down to how Jizuke performs for that team, because I think they, to me, have the best chance of challenging for that title.
I kind of disagree about them looking like C9 because when I think of C9 from 2019, I think two really, really aggressive solo laners with a jungler mostly playing towards them and a bot lane that's good about playing kind of the weak side. And I have such lower confidence in Kumo than I do in Licorice to do that. And Yuzuki is a bit of a coin flip to me because, he looked really great at Worlds that one time, but then he wasn't that great last year from my understanding.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well.
So, like, I don't think he'll be Niski, and I don't think Kumo will be Licorice. And then by that point, you're not really C9. Just because you have, like, similar shot calling in mid-late game. Like, you can't just assume you're going to get there. Because, I mean, like, Kumo is good, and I don't want to, like, rag on this guy, and I hope I'm wrong. But from what I saw...
really big rookie, right? So...
Well, he's a rookie, and unlike Licorice, everyone with eyes who watched Academy was like, Licorice is going to be amazing. He's going to be good. And it was only a question of when. And it turned out right away. Kumo is good, but I haven't heard from people in the scene and from my own eyeball tests anywhere close to the same level of, like, just wait for this kid to get to me. Kind of hype. I don't know if Emily has different thoughts on Kumo, but I would say I'm probably in the pessimistic Kumo camp.
I think the big question for me on this team is Jizuke, only because, not because he's not good, but because he is kind of inconsistent based on this past year. He has some really high highs, and then he looks not as great on either certain picks or just generally at certain points last year, which to me is a problem on a new lineup. If you're relying on your mid laner to be, like, really, really super stable. The most stable part of this team, or, like, boring part, I guess, is the bot lane, because they will be able to play weak side if you want them to. And that's really what Bang is used to. And I think he and Zazel probably have similar ideas about how they want to play lane, which is kind of just like, be safe, scale up for team fights, maybe take a few trades here and there, but you're not expecting them to be, this, like, super explosive, resource heavy bot lane. So then, you do have to look at top side. And for Kumo, he's one of those players that I've wanted to see on a team. Like, I was like, yes, like, please give this guy a chance because he's good. I don't have the same he definitely doesn't have the same hype around him as Licorice or some other players that have come out of Academy. So then you look at Svenskeren, and you want to see if maybe he's either going to be playing to mid while both side lanes kind of take a more like a safer approach, or if he himself is going to be more of like a carry force on that team, which could be really interesting, like from my perspective, because I love watching carry junglers, and we know Svenskeren is capable of that. But it also means that I really don't know how this team is going to play, except for the fact that I'm pretty sure I know how the bot lane is going to play.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to say I want EG to do well because I am really excited about the brand and the tech that they're taking. I mean, I've talked about this a lot on the show before, but I do worry that they maybe just weren't able to, after making some big plays with the C9 acquisition, really fill in the gaps with all-stars. I mean, with all-star players. I think that they unfortunately were playing from behind coming in, and they talked about this in the interview that I did with them, like they had nothing, right? Because they acquired the Echo Fox slot, and the Echo Fox had dropped all their contracts and players, so they didn't have that doesn't mean that it wasn't just that they didn't have players they could slot into the roster, but it also made it difficult because they didn't have players they could trade for. So all they could do is like literally throw cash at people, and sometimes other teams, want to do trades, right? Like the TSM situation is a great example of that, where we saw TSM and CLG swap their supports, and EG didn't even have that. So I want to believe that EG can be a true contender, but I think it's a bit of a long shot. And I think part of that is just because they weren't able to probably put together the full roster that they wanted to.
One thing I do want to shout out for EG, though, that could turn this lineup around if you're not looking at players, is I really like the pickups of Artemis and Empire from the Clutch Dig staff. I have a lot of respect for both of them, and I think they're both really good at what they do. So I know actually less about Irian, other than the fact that people who've worked with him tend to like him a lot. But other than that, I don't really have an opinion on him. But for Artemis and Empire, I like both of those guys, and I think they're both really intelligent about the game.
I will say also, from my understanding of how both those went down between CLG and Irian and Dig and Artemis, both those were more like, I have a better opportunity here, than like CLG wasn't happy and someone got sloppy second. That sometimes happened with coaching staffs. Like,
yeah, I heard Irene left CLG. They wanted him, but he left.
Yeah, exactly. And same with Artemis being like, I'm gonna like this more.
Great. That's a good point, Emily. I hadn't even thought about that. Either way, Proximate Galaxy, thank you so much for the call. Is there anything you want to say before we move on to the next caller?
Oh, I just kind of wanted to summarize to say that, like, a big problem I have is, like, looking through these teams, for each team, there's a couple names that stand out, but there's enough weak links in each chain that I think is going to just crumble to Team Liquid. But I'm really pessimistic about this year, unfortunately. I don't think there's going to be much shakeup in the power rankings. Like, EG will probably throw something in there. Dig might do something, but overall, I think we're going to see basically the same power rankings we did last year.
No,
and that's
similar. I agree with you. I enjoyed the offseason. It was fun to sort of see the mix-ups, but there's no team that I'm like, that's the fucking team. Look at that. Look, they brought Faker over. That's incredible. Either way, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Proximate Galaxy, for the call.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. Shout out to you guys. Shout out to the sponsors, and hope you guys have a good day.
Have a good one. All right. Mark, do you want to take our format calls yet, or do you want to do one more and then we'll...
This would be saving the format calls for last, because I'm not going to pull anyone else.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, it's your show, champ. I'll do whatever you want. I respect you as a co-host.
Yeah, I respect you as a co-host.
And I don't need to air our dirty laundry, So.
Thank you. Wait, are you gonna go get somebody?
You haven't paid me in forever.
Are you gonna...
You slept.
Yeah, you know why I haven't... Okay. Mark just left the channel, so he dropped that. I haven't paid Mark in forever because he hasn't invoiced me forever since I've been begging him to invoice me. As you watch many of these shows, or if anybody that watches many of these shows will know, it's a pain in the ass to get him to invoice me, and I need him to do it before the end of the year. Mark, I need you to invoice me before the end of the year for tax purposes.
You need to keep a spreadsheet. I actually still have a spreadsheet from when I had to do that as a freelancer of every single thing I wrote or filmed this
Mark,
year.
do you keep a spreadsheet?
I keep a Google Mail, and I search W-2s and W-4s and invoices.
How do I pronounce your name?
Isan.
Isan?
Yes.
Isan, where are you calling from?
Calling from Tokyo, Japan.
Tokyo, Japan. This is sick. This is great. I'm so happy we have a Tokyo, Japan caller.
I normally can't call in because this is literally like 2 in the afternoon, but I happen to have I happen to be off at this time right now, so lucky.
Well, congratulations. What do you want to talk about? Twitch chat already having stuff. What do you want to talk about?
My topic was, I was going to say that, like, I think All-Stars is, like, I myself, I'm going to preface this by saying I myself enjoy watching All-Stars. However, it's largely meaningless, and in its current form, they probably shouldn't hold it.
Okay. Why do you think it's meaningless and they shouldn't hold it?
Well, so I think it's pretty telling. I mean, I don't know why they did this. I mean, I haven't, like, paid that much attention, but I know, like for instance, Double Lift declined to go to All-Stars, and I believe Bjergsen did too.
Well, Double Lift was very busy.
Okay, like I don't know the reasons.
I'm being sarcastic.
Like I said, I don't know the reasons why.
He was at All-Stars.
He was clubbing, so he was not.
He was busy in the club.
Yeah, he just wasn't part of the event.
There's the fix right there. Host All-Stars at a club.
There you go. But yeah, so like I think that like the funds they use to hold All-Stars, given that, like, I mean, obviously people don't really take it seriously, the funds used to hold All-Stars might probably just be better spent somewhere else. Like, maybe hold another, like, I guess, quote-unquote, serious tournament?
Okay, here, I was just thinking about this, because today I tweeted this picture of the 2013 All-Stars lineup with Scara instead of each of the players. I'm ready to say this. Fuck MSI. Fuck All-Stars. Let's bring it back to 2013. Replace MSI with what All-Stars used to be, which was halfway through the season. You vote on players. You send 5 different players. They create one team, the North American team. They play in a serious style tournament halfway through the year. And then you go on to summer split. And maybe you do something fun in the off season that's kind of like a party or an award show or something like that as a off season product. But bring us back. Twitch chat is all saying no, and some are saying yes. I'm going to tell you right now, the people that are saying yes in the Twitch chat are the people with the high IQs. The people who are saying no, they struggle. All right, they struggle to get through the world.
Travis, wow, I disagree with this take.
I hate this take.
Why?
We don't have enough good international competitions, and you're like, well, we have 2, so why don't we?
Is MSI a good international competition?
Other one we have.
It's the second best, and technically you would be replacing it with another second best, but it would be so much worse than the current second best.
I just feel like so many people are down on MSI. Like, do people actually get hyped for MSI?
Wait, really?
Wait, what? People like MSI.
I love MSI.
All right.
You sound so disappointed.
Dude, I'm with you that, like, MSI has its problems. I think it shouldn't be used for seeding worlds and stuff like this about like the way it currently is, because I think it's actually, some of the Splice guys were talking about this. They're like, based off our achievements this world's, like, we would have gotten out of MSI. And that's true. It's straight up true. Like, it's actually not that hard to get out of MSI. You basically just need to be better than one team from the LMS, and then, you know, the other 4 are going to get out. It's the other 3 regions, right? For North America, that's the concern, or I guess Europe too, but they haven't been threatened of not getting out for quite some time. Like, it's not really competitive enough in the group stage, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But I'd still rather have that complaint and then get best of 5s from the best regions at the midpoint of the season than not, and instead get this fucked up tournament that Travis was in.
Everyone loved the 2013 All-Stars. It was universally loved.
It was universally loved because MSI didn't exist yet.
Well, and also it was in the infancy of LCS, right, in both regions. And so we had just come off of a year of basically like international tournaments, because we had European and NA teams in 2012 over in Korea competing in champions. So, I mean, I don't think we knew what the landscape was going to look like and how separate everything would become, and how few opportunities we would get to see teams compete with each other internationally, and also the difference between the competitiveness from region to region.
Here's the thing.
I don't think we really knew that yet.
It was okay.
So that's important context.
Let me pitch you on something. All right. Let me pitch you guys.
Go, Travis, go.
Would you like to see what a team would be like that has Licorice, Svenskeren, Bjergsen, Doublelift, and Core JJ on it? Doesn't that sound like a fun team to watch and see how they do?
Yes. Does it come at the cost of our second one of only 2 international competitions that we have?
The people in the chat that are saying no right now to that are just lying. Because actually, that's like, who would not want to see that?
No, because you didn't ask the question properly. Because
they're saying no to like what you're giving up in exchange for seeing that team compete one time.
Do you like free money? Then just sign up here, and I will totally not explain the fact that it's going to have this insane loan interest attached to it. Ideas sound great if you cut out all the downsides of them, Travis.
One thing I know that people have really strong opinions on whether they like or dislike is Rift Rivals. And I think if you wanted to see a shuffle of teams, you could potentially work it into that, because and see like have those teams compete in like a semi-serious tournament. Instead of what we have now, which is NA-EU is obviously incredibly European-sided, and the only like super competitive, like if for people who haven't watched it, like LPL, LCK, LMS is actually, or LMS will be no more this coming year, but like the LPL, LCK one is like insanely competitive between those teams.
So sorry, Emily. Emily, what are you suggesting? Are you saying we pit Rift Rivals where All Stars is?
I'm saying if you're gonna kill something, don't kill MSI. Look at Rift Rivals instead.
You're saying kill Rift Rivals and pit my All Stars idea there.
Experimental, yeah. I think like if you want to do like the experimental team, do it with Rift Rivals.
The problem is, then you're doing like, then you have all the problems with Rift Rivals just now with All Stars instead, where like it's this weird thing. Suddenly we're taking a break in the middle of summer split to do this like random ass event where people aren't even on the same rosters that they're trying to qualify to Worlds with. Like that, I think is even a bigger stretch, because I can't imagine you like, all right, it's week 4 or week 5 of the summer split. Now we're going to create this weird ass team that doesn't have time to scrim with each other. That's going to, I think it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, that is an excellent point. But, I mean, I also agree with what Mark said about MSI is seeded too heavily for a tournament that's basically one team per region, right? Because that it just, there's so many things that can happen, especially when the group stage is best of ones. But I don't want to kill off, like, we already have so few international events. Like, if it were up to me, I would like just axe the entire spring split and do like a circuit. So
I mean, I agree with
that's
that.
like where I'm coming.
I agree with that. Yeah. I would love to see a different, like a tournament style. Like, I don't even think international, but tournament. Now we're way off topic, but a tournament style event take place in.
What if you do it the other way? You kill summer and you use spring as a domestic ramp up period to open. Nah, this is fucking terrible.
What if we make Worlds summer split, and spring split qualifies you into Worlds, which is a 4-month-long tournament with a finally everyone can have their double elimination group stage Worlds. It'll be sick.
What if we just redid everything to be like Alita Battle Angel?
What if we got rid of
this conversation went.
What if Worlds was just all year long?
Back to the original caller's topic.
Why is our guest more professional than Travis?
I know. I think that this is a thing that Riot and like literally every traditional sport honestly struggles with, how to do an all-star event. And it's taken years for them to figure out how to do said all-star events, and even the ones in place might not be the ones that people want. So this discussion isn't even limited to League of Legends. It happens across multiple things because it's a really difficult thing to schedule, especially when, like, I can't stress how freaking long the League of Legends competitive year
is. Way too long. We've talked about this a lot. Starting in the middle of January and ending, and it gets longer every year. Every year it's 1 week longer. It used to end before Halloween, then it started ending on Halloween, then it started ending the week after Halloween. Now it ends 2 weeks after Halloween. It's really annoying. I'm going to be really frustrated whenever I'm watching the World Finals on Christmas Day in 4 years. Anyway, Isan, remind me what your topic was, because I literally do not remember anymore.
My topic was that like All-Stars in its current form should not be held as it is. And the funds would be better spent doing something else that's more meaningful competitively, I guess.
What would you like to see instead? Because here's the problem. You have to put this in during the off season when there's a bunch of roster shuffling happening and all that. Or are you just saying we just don't do anything in the off season and we have some other event before then?
I think what you said is true about the year already being crazy long, and it's probably too hard on the players to kind of cram in another serious event. But I don't know. I kind of like the idea of maybe dropping Rift Rivals.
Yeah.
And doing something a little more meaningful there.
Well, I mean, there's also the possibility of, changing what All-Stars currently is without huge changes elsewhere. Like, you can still have it like...
Yeah, you could do that too, I agree.
Yeah, like vote 5 players in for the region, but keep some of the fun game modes, but put a couple more of the... Like, I think there was only a single game that had all pros in it. I think... And that was like normal. There might have been an all-pro Earth mode, but then like Tandem and there are influencers in them and stuff.
What if you?
I think maybe.
What if you do 4 pro? You vote 4 pros in and 1 influencer, and they have to make a team, and then the 4 pros have to carry the influencer, and figure out maybe they have to play off roles or something.
Well, you still don't want to over incentivize like taking it try hard. So that was the problem before.
Right,
with,
I remember.
So, like, I understand not wanting to make it super try hard so the pros don't feel stressed out about it. But, like, if you could find a good combination of, like, still pros playing somewhat serious on occasion over the course of the weekend with the fun stuff.
Jack can call in, by the way. Jack says he's been blackballed. He's just using that as an excuse because he doesn't want to call in. In Twitch chat, he says he's been blackballed.
He's been spamming about wanting the 3 majors, one like international kind of setup that Dota 2 has, which I like. If you had like really fast seasons, you have like 5 or 6 week seasons for the LCS that seed into a quicker tournament leading up to Worlds over the course of the 8 months or something.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right, Isan, anything you want to say to the chat before or at the end of this call?
Not really. Shout out to Alienware for sponsoring you, because I'm a big fan of what you do.
Thank you. It's good to hear someone.
That's about it.
Have a good one.
Thank you for having me.
Travis, can you say the sentence, "Don't you even think about calling in, kid," out loud?
Jack says, that I've told him, don't you even think about calling in, kid. That's something I've never said.
I was just trying to see how it would sound coming out of your mouth. Can you say it like aggressively, like you're mad at someone?
Don't you even think about calling in, kid. That'd be better.
Doesn't sound like something you'd say. It's too.
Wow.
It's not angry enough.
We lost one of our format callers because we took too long to pull him.
What a loss.
But who's okay? Mark already left. What mic is this? It is a Shure SM7B. Jade, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Welcome back. Remind me where you're calling from.
I am from Toronto.
And what do you want to talk about on the show? This is, I think, where Mark. Here, Mark. I've got you. All right, hang on. Let me.
Can I just leave?
No.
What if I
could just? Boom. There we go. Problem solved. Jade, what do you want to talk about on the show?
What'd you do to me?
You told me to talk about how they should mix up the LCS format, like number of days.
Yes. Well, I pulled, to be clear, I pulled somebody for both sides, and I'm curious. So you're saying they shouldn't?
Oh, so now I get unopposed, so I win.
Yeah.
The current format's terrible. It's like Saturday and Sunday are the most busy times of year, and then or of the week, and it's like I don't want to spend my Saturday afternoon watching LCS, but like I'd love to watch a good match on Tuesday or Wednesday or any day. Other than that, you know what I mean?
So sorry, are you saying they should do 2 days but not on the weekend?
They should just not have 5 games in a row. Of like you don't care about 4 of the teams, so you only care about 2 games for the day. So you're gonna watch 5 hours of broadcast to catch those two days.
So
and whereas if you had like 3 or 4 days, put something on a Tuesday or a Wednesday and just had like one game, or like even like one best of 3 or best of 5 on Tuesday, and it's just that, and it'd be actually interesting because right now it's like, other than you don't even care because it's 1 point, even if it's like, oh, it is TSM versus Liquid or whatever, it's like, okay, Liquid won, boring. Like we probably thought that was going to happen. That's the last time they'll see each other for 9 days, and we missed. There's so many matchups in League, not just at the LCS level, but all the way up, that are like we never get to see. And it's like what you were talking with International. We see, Liquid gets stomped by someone, Cloud9 sneaks in and gets stomped by someone, and that's the end of it. We don't get to see all these matchups that could exist, and we don't get to see best of 5s during the LCS season that could exist. Like, we'll only get 2 or 3 with teams we care about. We'll watch Fox and whatever get stomped, and then we'll watch 1 or 2 that's good.
So,
chat.
Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
On a, I was gonna say, on a broadcasting level, there are like, well,
for sure.
On a personal level, I'm with you. Like I used to watch, TNT basketball games on Thursday nights, and I loved it. It was a great just time like sync on a Thursday where nothing else is really going on, and so I kind of get it from that angle about just if you put them more throughout the week, maybe a not interesting game suddenly is something people are willing to watch because it's Wednesday night. There's not really that many esports going on because everything goes on the weekends. So you're like, fine, I'll watch. What I will say is with how broadcasting on Twitch works, the optimal way to handle viewership on Twitch is to build it up and then let it ride. And that's why most streamers, do these longer 5+ minimum hour streams. And that's why I think Riot does it some of that way too, is because if you put this Team Liquid TSM game that you're saying that you care about on, people might join a little bit earlier and watch some games that they might not otherwise care about. And then even after it's over, they're already here. Maybe they'll stick around. Or if they don't, maybe they leave their computer on, they fuck off. But just getting those initial eyeballs is a really big deal. And shorter broadcasts typically do worse. There is a sweet spot. You don't want to go on forever and stuff like that. But I think they're, at least from how the platform of Twitch in live streaming works, there's a case to be made about how it is right now. But I don't think that, I'm down to experiment and try and see like what happens if you put 2 kind of poopy teams on a Wednesday. Does anyone watch?
I used to watch like every game kind of, and then it's been homogenizing down where they got extra teams and it's only on 2 days, and it's now because there's so little content in that like 5-hour spell, it does reach another tipping point where you just don't watch it. And that's what I do now. I'll occasionally catch it or watch a specific game, but I think they're actually losing viewer because I stream and I know you get that build up over time, but if you're not interesting, you get a more ethereal, harder to catch thing. And I think that LCS is really in danger of losing fans and interest because so much of it is boring and pointless. There's so few team matches you want to see, and like even a best of 1, it's like, well, who cares, right? If TSM's down 3 games, they're not gonna make whatever. It's very the same in a row, over and over. and they need to mix it up. And they need to mix up international. I loved your idea of reducing the splits to 1. That's like perfect. Reduce the splits to 1, use the extra, like make it a longer one. Because like spring and summer is so long, cut them down into 1, and then use time for international tournaments, get different games in, because otherwise people will get boring.
So we've had a lot of calls on the show before about changing the split system. So I don't want to get too off topic. And we can bring it up again on another show, but we're starting to run out of time. But it sounds like, sorry, let me ask you, if you had, say, 4 games on Saturday, 5 games on Sunday, and 1 game on Friday, 1 game on Monday, would you like that system?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I would also like a system just where there are certain times where it's like, oh, I want to watch this. Every week it's the same thing for the whole spring and summer. Like back when they had Super Weeks, it was like, sometimes I was like, oh, I'll just watch Super Week all day. And it's like, yeah, you wouldn't want that every day, but it would come up and it'd be like this little event and you get to see more games and different games. And I'd like for any given day of the LCS to have anything of note, because right now it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm just trying to narrow in on the potential format changes for next year. Because the format changes I've heard are they're going to put some games on Monday, so now we'll have a 3-day broadcast week. I'm kind of curious if that makes you more excited or less excited.
I think if they're going to spend it out, they should take the opportunity to throw in best of 3s, like 1 best of 3 a week or 1 best of 5 a week.
Sure, but that's like, just to be clear, that's not what they're planning on doing. I was mostly just trying to have a conversation around what they're potentially planning on doing, if you like it or not.
I do. I would like just less concentration on the weekend. It's like the best time of the week, and like if the current LCS was on Monday, Tuesday, I'd probably be more likely to watch it. Other than it's a bit long.
Gotcha.
Like sports is like a Tuesday thing. Like you're not doing anything on Tuesday. On Saturday, I'm doing stuff.
Well, it depends what sport, because I mean, like football is.
I don't watch sports, so I made that up.
Okay.
But you know what I mean. Like, is LCS worse Saturday? No? Question mark.
Yeah. Well, either way, thank you so much for calling in, Jade. Is there anything that you want to say as we move on to the next caller?
Yeah, I was in a store recently, a high-end mall, and I saw a product that you recommended. And normally, I'm really anti like advertisement and falling for advertisements. But I was like, I like Travis. He always speaks highly, and I tried it. And let me tell you, Tidy Cats is the absolute.
I've never recommended Tidy Cats. Good. Nice meme, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the call.
No problem. Thanks, Travis.
Yeah, have a good one. All right. Good job.
You too, bud.
We really need to get Tidy Cats as a sponsor because so many people talk about that.
I'm so sad you couldn't. They never even responded to you, did they?
At this point, I feel like they're like, wait, we don't have to do anything, and their community won't shut the fuck up now.
I mean, this is true. This is also very true.
I wonder if it's like people like being like, oh man, their fan base is activated, but our fan base is already activated. They don't need to give us money. You guys are too gung-ho. Stop it.
All right, so I don't see too many people. What's interesting is I was mostly hoping for a call about if people like or dislike the proposed or the rumored format change, which would be some games on Monday night. Mostly, it feels like everybody in the pleb topics and subtopics are like, I'm okay with 3, but it should be on every weeknight, or instead of on the weekdays, or I think that it should only be like everybody has, or it should be switching to best of 3s. Whereas mostly, I'm just hoping to talk about if people don't care if it moves to 3 days.
Proposed changes, not the ones that are actually happening. Which is, I'm
just now curious as to how many hours I've spent watching LPL thinking about it just in the past year. I want to calculate that now. That's totally off topic, but this topic just reminded me.
You should guesstimate, because do you watch every game?
Yes. So basically, what I do is I pick which thing interests me more in LPL or LCK when they overlap. And then if they don't overlap, I just watch LCK or LPL. And then if it's on the night where they overlap, I choose the game I want to watch, and then I watch VODs later.
So you just need to calculate or like guess average like watch time for a game,
Yeah.
and then just basically do how many games a week you watch.
Yeah.
Just going to be an insane number.
Especially with LPL specifically, just because they have so many. It's so many games and so many
crazy.
teams. There's only one night off.
All right, Twitch chat. Do you like having the game on Monday? Let's say every week it's a hype.
Oh, here we can do a poll. So okay, we're gonna do a poll because there's now a poll functionality built into Twitch.
Holy shit! When did that happen?
Wait, really?
Yeah. Where is it? Okay, here we go. So question: should LCS broadcast some games on Monday as well? Yes? No. I'm going to turn off subscriber votes count 2 times and allow voting with bits. We're going to run this for 1 minute. If you're on desktop, you can do it. If not, you can...
Oh, whoa, this is cool.
Whoa, yeah, it looks just like...
Yeah, I found out about it today because a Twitch staff member, my PS, who watches the show almost every week, and I don't know if he or she is in the chat right now, but they mentioned the /poll functionality. So if you're on desktop right now, you should see it above Twitch chat.
That's not how it works, everybody.
Yeah, guys, there's a poll. It popped up.
Up at the top, you can vote.
Poll. Yeah, you don't type it in chat. You don't type !poll.
We're all learning. So right now, it looks like yes is going to overwhelmingly win at 82% versus 18%. We're mostly hovering around there. So this is fascinating. There's my PSN chat. Thank you. So this is fascinating. I disagree with the community. I actually feel like it's going to be bad for viewership when you have certain games on Monday night. But I guess we'll have to find out. But I worry about it for the same reasons Mark mentioned, which is that your best ways to collect viewership is by just having one long stream. So if you're sticking 1 or 2 games on a Monday night, I feel like that's going to hurt viewership.
I'm almost 100% certain it will. They did it before on Friday, and there's the viewer acquisition that needs to happen where people realize oh shit, LCS is on Mondays now, and that is actually way more difficult than you think it would be. We remind people every day. Where we're probably going to if this happens hypothetically, but in general, Riot does a good job whenever there's something different of saying it, in post games, at the end of the day, beginning of day, and it's still people don't have any clue that stuff is going on sometimes. And so I would say, without a doubt, if Monday is just a single game broadcast, and even if it's not, it will be lower than even bad days on Saturday, Sunday, as well as the fact that just generally, I feel like weekend people, some people prioritize other things, but at least that's an option. Whereas compared to in the middle of the week, it's not. You have school and work. You can't even choose. You just can't do it sometimes. Whereas when it's on the weekend, I'd rather go watch a movie. I'd rather go hang out with my friends. But at least you're deciding between. So, I'm very curious what happens.
Yeah, I'm also very curious. I don't know to what extent ESPN is involved in this. I don't know if they're going to be an exclusive broadcast partner or whatever, but seemingly if the Monday night is somehow branded with ESPN branding, it obviously tells me that there's a sales or sponsorship factor attached to this, right? Because ESPN would be buying broadcast rights or naming rights or something like that. And I don't know, maybe they're putting it on TV, but I'd be surprised. But I think what could be happening is maybe it's going on. Actually, I don't know if we have anybody in chat who's gotten Disney Plus, but has the ESPN what is the ESPN stream that broadcasts League of Games? Has that been rolled into Disney Plus? It would just be very interesting to me if ESPN Plus, thank you. Yeah, so if this is somehow exclusive to ESPN Plus, or they're promoting ESPN Plus with it or something like that, I think that would be, I don't know. I would just be sad if we're losing viewership to take money from ESPN, which I have no idea if that's what's happening. I'm just worried that knowing that somehow, presumably, ESPN is attached to the Monday night thing, it's interesting. So I'm worried about it. Somebody says, is this a proposed change for LEC as well? I don't believe so.
Random other note, people who love best of threes say it was so good. Not for viewership. Factually, not good.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
I loved best of threes, but I know why they won't bring them back for NA, probably.
Like some good old 10K games between Renegades and whoever else, you know?
Yeah, actually, Jack makes a really good point in that they also had concurrent streams, which more than best of threes, I think concurrent streams is something that they'll never do again.
Yeah, but I think even if you don't split the streams, if you put 2 dog shit games on Tuesday night because no one cares, and so you have 2 best of threes between 2 dog shit teams on a night where, like, you know, you have school and work and stuff, I bet that also gets 15K.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing...
Maybe not, but I would be concerned. Because there's so much else that goes on into running the broadcast too. That means you're paying for camera ops and these people to come in extra days. You're starting to pay talent for extra days. Like, the costs increase exponentially, and then you're doing that for lower returns as you spread it out more. Like, it becomes a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people compare it to LCK and more specifically LPL, which I would say is probably the healthiest league in terms of viewership, but there's a lot of things like, and I obviously big LPL fan and proponent. There are a lot of things you can't take from the LPL because their viewership is so large to begin with, because there's so many people in China. So I feel like if people are looking at LCK also, but like more specifically LPL, and being like, oh, well, they do weekly games and, you know, people show up. Even the bottom tier teams have fans that will show up every week to watch these games. I think the thing you have to remember is that A, there's just so many more people they're watching League of Legends, and B, League of Legends in terms of how it's viewed in China is a lot more of like pretty much a traditional sport in terms of how it's accepted by people and how popular it is.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I don't know.
LPL does not have 20 teams next season. They're working their way up to 20.
They'll have 18, right? I think they're expanding from 16 to 18.
Yeah, they're expanding from 16 to 18, and then by the end of the year they'll have. Well, they've basically been adding 2 teams until they get to 20.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just want to say there was now that we've gone far enough deep in the show, I can actually bring this up without it being at the start of the show. And having a bunch of people shit on me for bringing it up. There was a Reddit thread on Wednesday, I believe it was. That was I think either at the top at one point in time.
How much we hate you?
What's that? Yeah, that was just like Travis Gafford doesn't know how to interview. I just want to celebrate the fact that even though that thread was shitting on me, I currently command the top 2 spots on the League of Legends subreddit. One of the interviews has over 10,000 likes or 10,000 upvotes. So, suck it, Reddit. You're stuck with me. Maybe I suck at interviewing, but guess what? You're still going to have to upvote my content, all right? Can't get rid of me.
Just lean into the whole privilege. I was here first thing super hard. It's like, my roots
I was here
too fucking
first.
Deep. Good try, Reddit.
No one can contest me. Travis Gafford Industries, this massive empire, the money and influence we wield to get these interviews, access to these people while providing mediocre, subpar, terrible interviews. Literally, I don't know how to. Is based off of what that Reddit thread said.
You literally cannot interview. By the way, now you should take it as a challenge and see how bad your skills can get while still having a stranglehold, while still being the greatest league interviewer.
Listen, Rick, thanks so much for coming to my hotel room today for this interview. I got to tell you, this is going to be a shit interview because I have to show Reddit how bad I could be. So this interview that you're taking time for, Mr. Fox, unfortunately, I'm just going to sit there and stare at you most of it just to make it as uncomfortable as possible.
Can we record bad ones? What happened? You never put that vlog one where I was vlogging your camera.
Yeah, that one was pretty...
Remember that one?
Yeah, I do remember that. I think I gave you the link to it.
Oh, did you? Maybe I didn't post it because it was so bad. But now's the perfect time to post it because people hate you anyway.
Yeah. Fuck you, Reddit.
I like how people think that, like, someone said, I respect that. I respect him. I'm grateful for everything he does. Because that post started with a little bit of, like, positive stuff. That's actually a psychological tactic that is used to get your quote unquote controversial, but not actually controversial opinion upvoted and make you seem more amiable. People actually upvote it, and then you're more likely to say whatever you want, and you don't have to believe anything that you just said prior to make it sound like you're nicer than you are. So things like unpopular opinion here. I know I'll get downvoted, but does anyone else think that Travis is a nice guy? But all those are the same platitudes that psychologically fulfill the same things in your brain, and they don't actually mean anything. That's not what the post is about. So just cross it off your brain and read what the post is actually about.
So I messaged.
I wanted to blame Travis. It's not.
So what was really funny was in the comments I invited that person onto Hotline League or to my not even Hotline League but just my stream, and I said that, and I think a lot of people thought this was like I was going to throw down with the OP or something. I actually think there's a huge conversation here to be had about what goes into an interview in the esports space, how hard it is to get them, what opportunities are there. I don't know, any of that stuff, right? And so I thought that I would just have a discussion with the person. They DM'd me and was like, and they just apologized profusely. They said,
"Oh, really?"
Yeah, they were like, "Hey, like, here's a." I'm not gonna read the whole thing because I feel like it's whatever. But just one line in it was like, "Honestly, I really love Hotline League and your talks with Margazzini, and I value your behind the scenes, your opinions and behind the scenes information you show everybody. So I was just hoping for some in that interview." And hey, I totally get that. Like, that's the thing is, a lot of people I think followed up on that Reddit thread and said, Travis doesn't take any feedback. That would have been perfect feedback. I do actually take feedback. There was a comment on one of my YouTube videos today that was like, Travis asked Doinby pretty similar questions to the Yankos interview. I wish he'd mixed it up a little bit more. That's actually like 100% true. The context there was that we were literally at the start of All Stars. I did like 5 or 6 interviews back to back. Like all the players became available all at once, and so I didn't really have any time to like. It was literally like, here's Yankos, here's Doinby, here's but it is true that like in those 2 interviews I ask a lot of the similar questions. And
right, and
I feel like, and so like that's a thing where I will look at it in the future and just think like, okay, crap, maybe it's Worlds, maybe it's All Stars, maybe it's Rift Rivals. I'm doing all these interviews back to back. I need to make sure that I vary them up a bit so that people who are watching the interviews back to back don't feel like I've just run through a similar topic list. But so I do take that criticism, and I would have taken the criticism of like, hey, I would have liked to have had your opinion a little bit more in that Parth interview, or have you follow up with him a little bit more on stuff. It just sucks that it turned into this giant Reddit thread.
Well, that's the other thing too. Oh, sorry, you go, Emily.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, I would love to chat with people about like journalism just generally, because I think it's interesting, but I just assume that it's everyone in the chat is gonna like fall asleep.
Yeah.
But in terms of like interview prep and what goes into an interview and the different styles of interview. I mean, I write things and no one reads them, but I put a lot of effort into interviewing people. So I think that to me is an interesting discussion. Also, Travis, I've given you feedback and you've given me feedback, and we have not ever come to blows before. So
well, that's
I don't think
I think that's the big thing is how you frame it, which is why like I said that stuff at the beginning, because he goes in with like that initial tact and then says, you're a privileged person. Then this is quoting from someone else who took it from it. You're a privileged person who only gets to know these things that no one else could. To the public, fine, reveal it, let them say what they want, throw it on your channel, monetize, I don't care. Just don't pretend it's an interview. You're sitting there waiting for them to stop talking, not acknowledging their points, and then blitzing out another question. Don't pretend that's an interview. Call it, or journalism, call it what it is. And it's like, you're intentionally being incendiary because it's Reddit and this is how things work, is that you do those 2 things in combination. And that's why I think it's hard to take these things seriously when it's like, you preface it with like the psychological priming of, I swear I'm not being overly negative and critical, with the overly negative and critical that doesn't really make a great point. But this is reactionary and people like reactionary. And then this is like, not humbling. I can't remember the right word I want to use, but like you're already priming people to not want to get offended, and then you get them with like the 1-2 punch. It's actually an incredibly effective tactic, and it's something that a lot of people do unintentionally. But it's just funny that passes for like feedback, because that's not,
Yeah.
Whereas like what you're talking about, where like you reach out to the guy and then he actually gives you what feedback should be.
Yeah, that's what I wish. I wish that I mean, obviously, selfishly, I wish that there hadn't been like a thread at the top of the subreddit that everyone at All Stars was like saying, "Don't worry, like Yankos at the end of the interview, I make a joke about it."
It was great publicity for you.
It was great publicity for me, and it became a hilarious meme with like everyone I talked to at All Stars. People would either come up and be very like pitying of me, and like, "Oh, I'm sorry, dude, that like that hate thread was up," or we just all memed it, right? Like the Twitter posts.
Yeah.
But I think like I would have taken this person's feedback way more seriously if they had just messaged me. Like I actually read every message that I get, other than whenever it's like obviously super hate filled. I read like the first sentence, notice what it is, and then I look at their Twitter or something like that and see that there's somebody who's just a jerk, and then I block them or ignore them. But I don't know. I think I really want to take feedback, and I really appreciate that stuff, and I do think I could have been more active in the Parth interview. The only problem is oftentimes, like, as I said in that reply, people don't understand the context of the situation, right? Like there was so much to talk about to Parth about in that interview, and he had to get in and out of my apartment relatively quickly, and so yeah, I could sit there and be like, well, let's deep dive into this topic, but then maybe we wouldn't have had a chance to talk about Dardoch at all, So
Sicarius in chat says, "Move on, holy shit." And since it's past 10 o'clock, moving on means ending the show. So I guess Twitch chat just wants us to end the show. Is that okay, Travis? Can I leave?
Well, I want to say one other thing really quickly.
I'm sorry, I'm just trolling.
Yeah, no,
it's just a funny point for someone to ask us to move on at the end of a show. You want us to just end? You can leave.
Move on to the conclusion.
Yeah, what do you?
Kizich RS in the chat said, "I think the problem is you're the only person who interviews in person. Your style is very different from Richard Lewis or Thorne, and Reddit doesn't get a wide range of different interview styles." I'm not the only person, but also somebody, I think it was Kizich earlier as well, mentioned something about there's this idea that he says there's no interviewer who presses on issues like Richard Lewis or Thorne. Many of the interviews are like Travis, very passive and let the other person talk. So that's the other thing I wanted to talk about is just, and by the way, it's the end of the show. If you don't want it, I purposely brought this up at the end of the show so that people can, if they're not interested, just turn it off. But I produced last year, I think, over 500 videos for my YouTube channel. The vast majority of those are interviews. There is very rarely, or not very rarely, there is not often. People have this idea that like journalism and interviews and all this stuff is just this quick back and forth. Two reasons for that is, one, the vast majority of interviews that you watch are edited down. Most of the time, they do not run completely unedited. They cut it down for brevity, either to make it like a 3-minute thing to run on a TV show or to make it like 10 minutes or so for YouTube. Esports has this cool thing, which I really like, where almost all content is completely uncut and uncensored, and that's what I've always tried to do. That's why you get 30-minute long interviews. So that's why one of the reasons why it doesn't seem as snappy and like as interrupty, because you literally are just letting the other person talk, and then you're asking your next question or responding to them or asking a follow-up question. The other thing is, I think people have this. I have this rap about not like digging in or asking a ton of like aggressive follow-up questions, because I don't vast majority of the time. And that's because the vast majority of my interviews are like LCS post-game interviews where I'm not going to interrupt Doublelift and say, there's just like nothing to interrupt anybody about. It's not like an interrogation type interview or where I'm sitting down across the table from some CEO at a pharmaceutical company who's been polluting like a river and saying, "Why won't you answer my question?" Like it's just like, that's not the vast majority of the interviews that I do. But if people do want to see interviews that are like that, there's a lot of them. One of them that stands out to me was an interview that I did with Waylon and Jared, where we talked about a ton of stuff. This was back in the Yahoo days in the studio. Emily, you might remember this, where around like the revenue sharing with the players, around like skins for worlds and all that stuff. There was a ton of follow-up questions in that, and I think of that. Obviously, that was a bit ago. I think of that interview because it's one of my favorite that I've done, because I felt like it was one of the first times I really got to dive in on a bunch of the Riot stuff for LCS. But there's like, if you want to see me do a lot of that stuff, I would say, like, if you don't like the more fun, lighthearted stuff, like what I'm putting out all week long from All Stars, I would recommend you watch maybe exclusively my interviews with team owners and folks that are getting involved in this stuff, right? I'm going to do interviews, like the interview I did with Chopper at the start of this year is a great example of that, where I ask him questions around the way that LCS is starting and why haven't we seen LEC do content yet, why haven't we seen content when LEC was already starting to put their stuff out? And there's a lot of that stuff. So anyway, look, I'm going to get better. I don't think I'm the greatest interviewer of all time. I think I'm pretty decent after doing this for 8 years.
Why don't you start with learning how to interview?
Yes, that is my first thing. I will learn how to interview, and I will ask a single follow-up question.
I can dig out my old... Actually, I don't even think any of them would apply, because all of my journalism textbooks are like history of media and stuff. All of the interview stuff we did like in class. Yeah. Never mind.
No, it's fine.
I'm sure my parents have them in their house. I'm visiting them soon. I can loan them to you.
Thank you. That would be really helpful. It would be really great if you could give me those. I need as much help as I can get. Either way, thanks everyone for supporting me on all this stuff, and I really appreciate it. And I will, listen. I appreciate also the people that send me feedback in a nice way that isn't hard flaming me or insulting my personal appearance and stuff like that.
Hey, it could be worse. It could be me. That's like a ton of YouTube comments.
Wonka S, yeah.
On my personal appearance. It's unlucky.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, it's whatever. I'm not here to look good. I'm here to comment on League of Legends.
Yeah. YouTube.
Nail that shit though.
YouTube comments, they're not always the best. Anyway, it's kind of a weird way to end the show, but
wow, this is a downer, Travis.
I know. But better to end the show this way than to start it this way. And I felt like,
is that a good transition? That I need to help my girlfriend get her laundry.
Yeah. Mark, you have anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to plug?
Just if you hated TFT, strap in, because I'm doing more TFT this week. I think it's on Thursday with Frodan, who I love. So it's really, really great.
Emily, do you have anything you want to plug? When is your fashion column coming out for the Louis Vuitton
tomorrow.
stuff?
Oh, I saw that, and I was actually really excited. Do you know?
Yeah, it's about assets. We're just making sure that we have the right picture assets, actually.
Nice.
So.
Okay. Well, I am excited for that. Do you want to explain what it is? Sorry, we should say for the chat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I've been joking around for a really long time, actually, that if they actually did like a full Louis Vuitton fashion release, that I would rate it, because I'm actually weirdly really intrigued by esports meeting fashion in all sorts of ways. And again, another reason to watch LPL. I know I'm harping on this, but like LPL does all sorts of weird collaborations. One team has put out several clothing lines that are just based around their dog, not clothes for dogs, but as in the clothing line has like the dog's face on it. And actually, I think they have clothes for dogs too. But anyway, and the LPL in general has a ton of pro players that are super into, mainly like a lot of them are huge Seeker heads, but there's like people went through, Doinby's LPL All-Star outfit, and it was like thousands of dollars, like off of some, I forget who did it. I forget who designed his jacket, but it was like this insane suit jacket with like gold embroidered phoenixes on the shoulders. I retweeted a picture of it and like all the list of how much it was and what fashion houses they were from. Anyway, I'm doing a fun fashion column on the Louis Vuitton wall line that released today. So, and I was like on it as soon as it released. I was like, you guys said you'd let me write about this.
I'm so excited because I don't know anything about fashion. And so like when I saw the Reddit threads, and of course it's a bunch of gamers flaming high fashion, which is probably two pretty far demographics for the most part. For like average fan bases or whatever. So I had no idea how to judge, because I'm in that fan base of like, I would never buy this stuff. So like, I want to know like from people who understand fashion and are informed about this stuff, like what to make of it. Cause it sold well from my understanding. I don't love the way it looks, but I also am wearing a fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shirt.
Look, Mark, people make fun of you for looking homeless when we were on the Yahoo show.
He still gets made for that. It's only gotten worse.
Yeah, so like, I don't like the way that stuff looks, but I also understand I have a terrible sense of fashion, so I'd love to read about it from people who do have a good sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the intersection's really interesting. And yeah, so I'm writing about that, and that should be fun. I'm also writing a giant feature on NA talent that's hopefully coming out this week as well.
Nice. Well, I'm excited for both of those. That'll be cool. Well, either way, thanks everyone. I've got like 20-something videos that are going to hit my YouTube channel over the next week from All Stars. We've got so many videos hitting. So either way, just stay tuned for that. Check out the Alienware giveaways that I promoted during the Alienware break. There should be links to those in the YouTube description if you're watching on YouTube. And again, thanks everyone for watching the show. If you're watching live, stick around because I'm going to debut one of those interviews after we do a quick bounty. Thanks everyone for watching. This has been Hotline League episode 102.